Welcome back to the Dear Future Husband podcast. I'm your host, Kristen. Have you ever found yourself thinking, if I could just look like so-and-so, I'd be sought after? Or if I could just achieve this, then I'd be worthy being pursued? This is a cycle that we can get easily stuck on as women, especially in the realm of dating. So I brought on my friend Kristen Dalton Wolfe to speak to this, shed some light, and hopefully encourage you to see your true value and get out of this loop of comparison or striving. She is a former Miss USA, a wife, and a mama, and is so passionate about encouraging women to discover, in her words, their sparkle. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. I love that we're talking about this and some of the topic points we're going to cover today, because you first reached out to me in such a kindness when I really needed wisdom when I was going through the Miss Tennessee pageant. And you are a former Miss USA. When was your reign? How did you get into pageantry?
Yeah, it was back in 2009, which is so crazy. And the way I got into pageant was my mom really introduced me and my sisters because she was Miss North Carolina USA. My mom did not make the top 15 at Miss USA. And I just remember, like, as a little girl being like, that is a riot. How ridiculous. Like, you were robbed. I am going to go win that thing for you. And so little, I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm going to go get it. So there was that element. And then as a family, we would watch Miss USA and Miss America every year, like the Super Bowl at our house. My dad, my brother was in on it, and my dad always picked the winner. And for me, I know. And so for me, I just remember watching the final two moment like every year and being so emotional when the winner won, because even if she wasn't my pick, you could just feel the work that she had put into it, like in her reaction, you know, like the emotion, the heart, the sacrifices. And that girl was always a role model to me. I was like, I want to be like that kind of person for other people too.
Yeah, there is work, which you prefaced me on, but I did not realize until I was in the thick of it, like, woo, this is a commitment, like hour to hour doing something to this extent. And you know, if you're listening, you might be like, why are we talking about pageantry? Like, that's not my life. But I want to talk about that one in essence to show how you went from this season of like such hard work, such dedication to finding who you are, to bettering yourself in this single season, to now being a wife. Like a lot of people listening, they want to be married or they're newly married. And there's like just this juxtaposition, I think, of like knowing who you are and then thinking that marriage will solve all your problems when you do get married, but we know that's not the case, no matter who you're married to. So if you would be willing, sharing some of like, what was it like being in a spotlight, if you will? Like, what did you navigate in the beauty of finding who you are, but also the real tension that brings?
When I was 12 years old, I knew then that I wanted to be Miss USA. And so for anyone listening, everyone has a dream. And if you don't even know what your dream is, you at least know that you want to be a light in the world, because that's why you're listening to this podcast. You know that at least you are a daughter of God and you want something more. You're born to be set apart. You are not born to be conformed to the patterns of this world. And so because I knew I wanted to be Miss USA since I was 12, there was this one night that I wrote a letter to God where I made a decision that aligned with the vision. And this is something that all your listeners can do, is make a decision of how you're going to live in alignment with what that vision is in your life. And so my letter said, Dear God, I promise that I'm not going to drink, smoke, try drugs, or have sex before I get married, because I want to live like, you know, worthy of the call. And yeah, I also knew that those would be distractions. They could be detours that would take me off the path and take me off this focus. And so because I had really set those decisions in place, it helped me stay grounded and rooted when I was Miss USA and when there was that spotlight and temptations to compromise, or when other people didn't have the same values that I did. You know, I was a 22-year-old girl. I have all these values, and there are adults around me that I respected and looked up to who didn't cherish the same values. They weren't like, wow, good job, Kristen. They were like, that's dumb.
Late for that, I was going to ask, or shamed for having the values you did.
I definitely felt like, yeah, totally. But yeah, just having those values in place, making a decision before you get into a situation
Yeah.
helps you stay grounded.
The saying of, if you can't just like not run from something, you have to run to something. So you're talking about, whatever it is, like setting the vision and like even the practicalities of like, what am I going to do today to get to that? Even if it is a year from now, even if I do have to try and try again. And I feel like that's key advice again, like you're saying, for whatever part of your life is, whatever you're dreaming towards, specifically in wanting to get married. There's girls that I've had conversations with that say, I want it, but after waiting, I start to doubt that it's ever going to happen. How would you combat any of the fears you felt, or even disappointment? We know this. You have to compete at a state level, and then at USA, and then Universe. So I know you know a little bit of like this tension and the angst and the highs and the lows.
Christian, it is so simple, but not easy. And it is the verse shortened, blessed is she who believes. Blessed is she who believes, over and over again. So it's just belief, 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 and you will be blessed. And it's like, okay, what am I believing for? Like, am I believing for this thing that I want? It's like, just believe that God is good, believe that he has his best for you. You will be blessed. And just holding on to that belief.
And I love that it says blessed, not gifted, because I think sometimes we think of, okay, well, I'm going to serve God to get the thing. We lose sight of like what the relationship actually is for. And, candidly, I'm speaking a lot about your life, but I'm a fan of you. So I feel like I can do that. But Miss USA was something you achieved. Miss Universe wasn't. And so I think this idea of like gifted and blessed, like it's only the favored that are blessed, are those. And not to get into like the weeds of it, but I'll have some people come up to me and be like, oh, well, you got married relatively young. So, like you get the good gift and I'm still here waiting. But I think separating like so much of when it comes to female relationships and like the trusting God process is like, she got this bid, or I'm still waiting on that. And I feel like that's detrimental, one, to female relationships, one, but then also to like the beautiful, unique work God is doing in your journey. So you are a coach, which I think your dad was always picking the winners. Maybe he should coach with you because he has an
Right?
what do you say to your girls? Because not every girl you coach, especially if they're in the same pageant, is going to win. So what are some key values that you feel like as a coach and also someone that is an encourager, you can instill in people to understand like, hey, you're special, you're set apart, even if it's without a title, like just embracing who you are?
Yes, girl. Honestly, I resisted officially becoming a coach in the pageant world for so long because of exactly what you're talking about, and okay. And so what it finally came down to is, and now I've been coaching for years. It's about the process. It's not the result. Pageants, I think, are such a concentrated, acute experience of unfairness, of things that you can't control. There are so many times where the results are like, what? And where I'm like, I quit. Like, I am done coaching. This is ridiculous, or I have judge pageants and I have seen some shadiness. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, these women are spending thousands of dollars. Like, to them, it's so important. And the process is not on for the women. And that makes me really sad. But here's the thing. That is the real world.
True.
Is it not? It is life in every area. Yeah. And so it's like, it's such a great way to develop mental toughness and resilient and grit, because if you can get through that, you can do almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can
No,
handle a lot.
and I think the girl that recently won Miss Tennessee, the pageant I was in, it was her 6th year competing. So like she had to have grit just to get there.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
to get the thing that you want, you got to keep showing up.
Back to that verse too, though, blessed is she who believes, because you're talking about like comparison too, like how come she got this result at this time in her journey and I'm still waiting? Like, does God love her more? And this isn't always the case, but the one who believes is focused on her journey and her lane and the work that God wants to do within her. She's not looking to the left and to the right and comparing, because when you compare, you're focused again on things that you can't control. And guess what that's going to do? That's going to steal your sparkle, and it's not going to make you an enjoyable person to be around. So if you're single and dating and you're looking for your husband, my advice is to focus on the work that God wants to do in you so you can attract the man that he has for you.
Oh my gosh, you are like preaching to the old choir, because I remember back in the day, like struggling so much with wanting to present myself in the best way, not wanting to feel like I wasn't welcome or I wasn't my best self or people didn't like me, almost like this people pleaser mindset. But living in that habitually caused me to be someone that not everyone liked, because there was just this like tension and I was at war in my mind of like, well, someone else is getting this, or like I need to be this person. And like when we feed these narratives like on loop, they really do, I think, affect our behavior. Like you're saying, they steal our sparkle, they rob us from becoming the women we're supposed to be. So if you're someone listening and you're like, oh, maybe I do want everyone to like me, or I do want to be my best self, or I am worried about her getting this and me missing out on that, like knowing the path that God has for you. And some people can get a little odds rand about this, but I do believe that you're not going to lose what God has for you, or he's not going to give it to someone else, but we can miss it if we're not walking in the fullness of it. The best thing you can do to be your best self, to be around the people that and the things that are meant for you, is to be who you're meant to be. Like let God show you who that is. How do you tell people to find their spark? Well, you wrote a whole book on this for anyone that wants to know more, but what's a little snippet for those listening?
Yeah, I love that you're bringing that up. It just made me think about even my own story and journey, like when I was dating before I met my husband, Chris, and just like what you were talking about when you're kind of looking around you and you're like, oh, this girl is getting the thing. She's either getting the guy or the goal. And and she's this kind of person. She's like cool, or she's chill, or she wears these kind of clothes, or this is her style. So we kind of like take notes and start morphing ourselves. That's not a fun way to live, because you're not being truly authentic and free. And so I read this book before I met Chris that really helped me so like prepare for him. And it's the book Captivating by Stacey Eldridge. And what's really cool is Chris read Wild at Heart, the
Fun. Almost like the male sequel to it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like a male version of it that her husband John wrote before we met, that really just helps prepare us for each other. But the thing, a really big takeaway that I got from Captivating was just this idea of, as little girls, we love to play dress up and wear tutus and twirl and these like flowy dresses and skirts. And we're just really in touch with our princess girly side. And then there's, as we grow up, that's not cool anymore, or we need to either downplay our girliness because we're not taking it seriously. And that was the truth for me. I felt like I needed to come across as more serious, stop wearing makeup, and I needed to be like not seen as high maintenance to guys. So it just helped me like start owning that. It's like silly or superficial or simple as that might sound. Like I'm like, no, like I am feminine and soft, and that's how I want to be, and that's how I want a man to make me feel. And he's not going to make me feel that way, and I'm not going to attract that kind of man if I'm trying to be like this cool girl, you
Right.
know. And so I started just like tapping into that part of me and really owning it. And then Chris was over here owning his masculinity, and then when we got together, it was like, knight in shining armor and princess.
Yes. Fairy tale story beginning, huh?
It
No,
really was.
and I love that you're saying it's not even one box. Like, you don't have to subscribe to like one model or version of essence of who God woke you to be. And if you aren't one of those people that's like, I'm waiting on the one and I'm seeing this girl get this guy, what that guy likes about that girl is not what your man is going to like about you. So if we just copy and like paste of what we're seeing work for others, we're not working with the bait God's given us, not to make us sound like, we are bait. But I mean, what's captivating, we'll use that word there, about you, I think, is a discovery. And so often it is tempting to want to just think, well, what's working for other people? Or like, what's sexy in culture right now?
What do guys like? What do they like for me to wear? And it's like, no, don't dress how you think they want you to look. You better just like what you're wearing and feel good about it.
Right. And how exhausting is it to like put on the show of, well, I think this is what you like, and like do like, it's like research, right? Like, what is everyone wearing? How is this person reacting? What am I getting good results on? Like, it's just so much effortless to be yourself. And that's something I would have told my high school self. Like, I look at photos, Kristen, and I'm like, who is she? Why are you wearing that? Why were you at that party? Like, that's not you.
Right.
It's sad to me. I hope, I only have a son right now, but I never want my daughters or sisters to be in those same scenarios. So like, we better start changing the narrative now.
Yeah. Okay, so there was this guy that I dated right before Chris. He was the one guy I would say that I lost my power to. And what I mean by that is I put him on a pedestal in the sense that I thought he was so cool and amazing and that I wasn't quite as worthy as him. And so I literally, every time I hung out, I did a full face of makeup and stressed about what I was going to wear. Like I needed to look like, so I don't know. It was just, yeah. And so like you're saying, when you set yourself up with that in the very beginning, then you have to maintain it. Or at least you feel like you do because that's what you present right away. So then after he ghosted me, by the way, after that went down, I made a decision where I was like, next boy I date, he's gonna see me stripped down, not stripped down like naked. I was like, whoa, not nice, like no makeup, like So the second time that Chris and I hung out, he invited me to a Bible study, which is green flag. And so I showed up with no makeup. I just like my hair was wet, and I was like, if he doesn't like me after this, then good, like this is a good little
Weeding it out.
yeah, exactly. And so it turned out that he thought I was like even more beautiful. He saw me like that. So I'm like, cool. So this is what you would get on a daily basis. And I just need to make sure that you're into it.
Yeah. Like, I can do both, but you're going to wake up to this version of me.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, it's the word you use, free. Free. Like we're looking for freedom here. And you get that when you are true to yourself. And you were talking about discovery. You're like, how do you become that woman, or how do you become captivating? And one tool or advice that I would give is remember the last times that you felt completely free and uninhibited. And this is something I did in my early 20s. And for me, it was when I was 7 years old. And there was this like picture of me. I like lost some teeth. I just won like a Young Authors Award contest. And I could see myself smiling in this picture. And at the time, I believe there was nothing I couldn't accomplish. Like the world was my oyster. I was so confident in my dreams. And I was also really girly. And that gives us clues. Like when we remember the last time We felt totally free, confident, uninhibited. We're not thinking about what people are thinking about us. That's the key. That'll give you some clues as to the true essence of you, and you can take some notes from there.
Really great, practical, yet deep advice. I love that. We just did a podcast on like self-love too. And I think that's a similar narrative. Like, don't think you have to force to love yourself, but do what you're saying. Find aspects of when you did feel at peace, when you loved what God was doing in your life, that aspects and talents He's given you, and like go all in on it. Who cares what people say, right? Well, I think this is great advice, whether you are wanting to do a pageant, whether you're trying to discover more of who you are, or you're in the thick of dating and just like stress. Like, I don't want anyone to be in that mindset of like the angst, like trying. You already have that essence within you. And so it's leaning into that in a special way. And I really hope people follow along with you, read your book. You also do She Gathers events. Can you talk a little bit about that if anyone is local to you?
Yeah. She Gathers is my women's ministry here in Los Angeles. And it's a group of purpose-minded women who come together to grow with God. If anyone wants to join, they can go to She Gathers LA on Instagram and check us out.
Do it. If you're local. I know community is so huge. And, you know, part of discovering your essence and believing in it is being solidified by the people around you. And continuing to, honestly, I feel like you benefit when you're around other amazing women. It's like, oh, you got gold that I don't have to copy, but it can sharpen my gold. Little iron, sharpening iron there. I mean, we could go on and on. I could ask you a million questions, but you have such a beautiful testimony around mental health as well. So I hope anyone listening does pick up your book, follow along with you. Do you want to share your handle on Instagram if anyone wants to connect, or where they can find you?
Yeah, at Kristen J. Dalton, and my book is The Sparkle Effect. Most people get it on Amazon, but you can get it anywhere.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. It would mean so much to me if you would leave a comment or review, subscribe, so we can keep bringing content like this and better tailor it to what you want and need to hear. I'll see you next time.